Hey everyone, welcome to GameFace, episode 203. We're here.
Coming to you live, radio-free GameFace from the Hollywood wasteland.
Even the coronavirus cannot stop GameFace. I do want to kind of bring up what's been going on. We're not going to talk about what's going on because it's driving people crazy, and I feel like you guys watch or listen to this show to kind of get away from it all. But I do want to explain kind of what our perspective is on what's going on. Things have just gone berserk since we were last sitting at this desk. It's really crazy what's happened in a week. Last week feels like a year ago to me. Things are moving very quickly. Things change very quickly. They say one thing one day, and then the next day they change it. So
kind of par for the course for this administration, but here we are.
Yeah. So we're going to keep going. We're going to keep making shows. We're going to keep creating content as long as we're legally allowed to. I don't know if we'd ever get to a place where it gets so bad that 3 people can't be in a room together.
Yeah, especially that we're already together a week ago. I mean, you're kind of...
Because it's 3 people for this show. So as long as it doesn't get below 3 where they're like, you just have to sit by yourself in a closet, basically.
I mean, you might get there.
It could get there. I mean, who knows? Nobody knows. That's pretty much where we're at right now.
Yep.
But I did want to let you guys know that we're going to do everything within our power to keep creating content for you guys, keep putting out new game faces. One thing that might be a bit sacrificed is Pactor Factor. I reached out to Pactor about it. I haven't heard back from him yet. He may be in a place where he doesn't want anyone coming to his home.
That's fair.
It's totally fair. I totally get it. So we'll see. I don't know. I mean, maybe he's okay with it and he's just busy. I don't know what the deal is there. But there's a possibility that may have to go on hiatus a little bit.
It has been a week for the financiers.
Yeah. I mean, if you're in his position, it's a really, really tough week. So we'll see about that. We still have some episodes to run still. I was trying to get out ahead of it because who knows, in a week we may not be able to leave our homes at all. So we're going to be here for you guys as much as we can. If it does come to a place where we're literally like quarantined and we're not allowed to leave our homes, which could happen, then we would work on, one, I would start streaming a lot more, gameplay and things like that. We would try to maybe figure out a way to do GameFace via Skype or something. We're not going to abandon you guys. We're going to think of ways to get content to you guys and keep doing what we're doing. But just
because video games are one of the only things that are going to stay relevant.
Yeah.
Because everyone's going to be stuck playing them.
Yeah, in the open to SIFTD HQ that went up this morning, I mentioned it's been interesting to watch everybody else turn into us and struggle. It's like, you can't leave, you need to stay home. It's like, that's what I do anyway.
Yeah, it's not what I do. This is weird to me. Like, I am not used to staying home all the time like that. But
I do. I mean, I work from home mostly, so it's just I'm just there all the time. So my risk is very, very low for me to get anything. But that's not how this works. You come in contact with the wrong person once, and then it can set off a series of chain reactions. So anyway, we feel for you guys. Everybody's in the same boat all across the world. We're all just in this. Like, this isn't like a once in a lifetime. This is like a once in like ever.
This is this is the most significant global event of our lifetimes.
It is.
If you were born after World War II, which I think most of us were.
Yeah.
And it's a real deal. You're living through history, as Stephen Colbert said. What I wouldn't give for a dull moment.
Yeah.
Like just over and over and over, and I was like, "Oh, April will be better." April, God knows what's going to happen in April.
I know.
Death Star is going to show up or something.
There's no way of knowing. But we're thinking about it, and we're thinking about you guys, and we're trying to figure out ways to make sure we keep content coming to you guys, and at the very least, stay connected. So yesterday I came in here, and you don't know. Like the next day, they could change everything. So I was in here shooting the Big 6 for SIFTD HQ, and like I came in and took my webcam and a couple other things just in case. Like I woke up today, and they're like, you can't do anything. I was like, all right, well, I'll stream Doom or I'll stream Animal Crossing. We'll figure something out.
Yeah, I mean, you can watch Washington State, because Washington State's a little further ahead of us.
Yeah.
If they do a full, like, National Guard-style lockdown, you're probably going to see something similar happen, at least to the cities in California. I don't know if you can actually lock down California because it's so big.
Yeah.
But you might, you're already seeing something like that in San Francisco because they have worse cases. Like, LA doesn't have that many cases right now.
For how big it is, it's pretty crazy.
But again, because nothing's being tested, we don't know how many people have it or just walking around and don't know they have it.
That's the big problem,
lack of information, as always, is a huge problem.
But let's stand together, people. Let's do what they say. When they tell you to
stop
stay
buying
in,
toilet paper, for God's sake. Like,
you want to know?
Fine.
So my wife called me right before we went on air and was like, I found toilet paper. We were down to our last roll and a half.
Wow.
And we had been going all over the place for the last week. you couldn't get it.
Yep.
So
I haven't bought any because I buy in like the huge, chunk things, and I just did that like a month ago, so I'm good.
Yeah, now's not the time to be a rebel, is what I'm saying. Like, I get it. When I was in my teens and 20s, I was like, F the establishment. They don't know what they're talking about. In this case, they do. Listen to them. Do what you're told. And we won't have to live with this for the next, 8 months. We'll eventually get rid of it. So everything they're telling you is right. Listen to them. Do what they say. We'll get through this. Yeah. Well, if you listen to the doctors and the scientists.
Yeah, the scientists who are doing this, yeah.
Yeah, because leadership right now, in my opinion, is really letting us down. So anyway, let's get on with the show. We have big games to talk about today. It's really the first time we're going to talk about games since we launched the shorter version of GameFace. So this is going to be a bit of a test for us to try to talk about games and then get them squeezed down into the time frame, keeping in mind that we will be recording deep dives for the first time after this episode. It will not be streamed live. They're going to be pre-produced and published on our Patreon and our site. But we got a bunch of games to talk about on the show today. We're going to have a bunch more next week, provided we can do the show. Couple housekeeping things. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts, it'd be great if you could help us out. Go to patreon.com/SIFTD and throw us a couple bucks. You'll get the show a lot earlier if you do that. And another new development for SIFTD is that you can access Pach-attack a week early if you're a Twitch Prime subscriber. If you're on YouTube, there's instructions for that in the description of literally every video that we post on YouTube. So you can find out how to do that, and you can go to our Twitch channel and you can get Pach-attack 7 days earlier than you would get it on YouTube. All right, let's kick off this dang show. We're going to start first with Ori and the Will of the Wisps. I have not finished this game.
Neither have I.
For good reason.
It's a little bigger than the first one.
It's bigger than the first one, and it's more difficult than the first one.
The first one was no pushover.
It wasn't, but this is more difficult. Do you not agree with that?
Not really.
Really?
Because I'm better at combat than platforming.
Okay. So maybe the biggest change...
I do think you're right that it's harder combat.
In general.
Yeah.
Well, there is combat really now. Last time you just kind of had that one attack that you
kind of
used.
The auto attack thing, yeah.
Yeah. Now it's a full suite of combat that you have in this game. The platforming, I would say the difficulty is about the same as it was in the prior games, but now because they've expanded the combat, to me it adds more challenge to the game because there are boss fights. That was something that was pretty much non-existent in the first game, and they're pretty frequent. Every hour and a half, it seems like I would run into one.
Semi-common, yeah.
And they're hard.
Yeah, there's some moments, and like early on, I was in I think it was still the prologue where they have you run from this giant wolf thing.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, what do you want me to do? Like,
no, I died 4 times before I even figured out what was going on. Yeah. This whole game is kind of that way.
Yeah, there's an expert mode to it, I think, but I like it. I like the balance. I mean, I've seen some people say it's a little more Hollow Knight-y.
Yep. Agreed.
Which I can see.
Yep.
And I think that's a good step. I don't really have a problem with how it turned out in that regard. I just haven't had time to really sit down and get into it. And also, like, as Sessler says, like, it's hard to really get lost in anything, even though you have the time now in the quarantine zone, because you've got that thing in the back of your head, like, waiting for another shoe to drop.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. We're going to talk about a game a little later that really, I think, kind of twists the knife on that angle.
Yes. Yes.
And I will say that my patience is not where it usually is right now, in general. And I did find myself at times stalling playing this game. One thing I would say is that the narrative in the game is not very prominent. So I think when a lot of people talked about the last game, everyone talked about how emotional it was and how the story kind of pushed you forward. I don't really get that from this one. There's like a big opening sequence where it sets everything up. And then the narrative just kind of disappears. Like you run into people out in the environments that'll sell you stuff and stuff like that, but...
Yeah, and you're looking for your friend who's lost out there early on, but like, there's not a lot else happening. Early in the first game, there's a very strong drive to like, get to the trees, fix the trees, bring life back to the forest, that kind of thing. This one, you're sort of like, well, something's going on. You better go find your friend, and maybe like there's more to this place because there's a whole lot of weird people around. But like I don't really quite know. Even like about 4 hours in, I don't really quite know where they're going with it yet.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't really need to because it's you don't need to convince me to play a Metroidvania really.
I just brought it up because that was if you talk to someone about the first game, the first thing they would say is like the emotional story. That's kind of the tagline from the first game. It made people cry. It made people sad.
Yeah. See, I just wouldn't. I mean, I get that, but I wouldn't characterize my fondness for the first game as that because while it does do a good job of like getting the emotions out there, like I just like this kind of game.
The gameplay.
So like that was and it was.
But be warned, if you're a person who prefers story-driven games, you could be fooled into thinking that this is one of them based upon how people spoke about the first. And that's definitely not the case. There's a big opening sequence, which is what you're seeing right now. There's a young owl that becomes a part of the quote-unquote family. The owl cannot fly, which is a problem for an owl. Because it has kind of a broken wing. Early on in the game, you find a feather that you kind of attach to its broken wing.
It was the feather from the first game.
Right, which is a nice tie to the first game. And
even though everything else you could do in the first game, you have to relearn again.
Yeah. And I'm not going to spoil anything beyond that. So you get the feather, you attach it to his wing, he tries to fly, and I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, and then she does a very dumb thing.
Pretty much.
But if he didn't, there'd be no game.
Yeah. And then after that, the story really doesn't move for a really long time. There are a couple really short cutscenes here and there to kind of keep you in the loop on what's going on, but there aren't big plot movements, so to speak, it's not, my point is the plot will not drive you to keep playing this game. And I felt like the first one did.
I did not feel that from the first game at all.
Really?
No. Like, in fact, the characterizing the first game as story-driven is bizarre to me.
Well, I wouldn't go that far. I said the story is what drove me forward to play the game.
I was driven forward because it's a Metroidvania, and I wanted to do the water temple and do the fire temple and I mean that was what I was there for, and it did it for me. It was good.
Different strokes for different folks, obviously.
And I do still like the first game more than Hollow Knight and a lot of the other similar games.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. We hit the first level of the hype train already. We're off to a raging start here on GameFace 203. Let's talk about the difficulty. How hard is it, Matt?
It's not that hard.
Yeah, it's not like Dark Souls hard.
No, it's but it does demand familiarity with the basic combat, and it does. I am the kind of person that like tends to not use the special moves, and like this, I found myself using them pretty frequently.
You kind of have to,
like especially with aerial enemies early on. Like you need like one of the special moves you can buy.
There's a bow.
Or there's a thing where you can leave. You can basically have like what you had in the first game.
Yeah.
You can drop like a little sprite and it'll just auto shoot stuff.
Yeah.
Things.
It's a sentry is what it's called. Yeah.
And it's there's more to it. There's more. I mean, I hesitate to use the word depth because that doesn't usually mean anything, but
I mean, this has way more depth than the first game.
The first one. Yeah. The first one was just sort of auto-targeting and hammer the button stuff.
Yeah. I mean, there's like skill trees in this.
Yeah, but I think it feels good. Like I think
the platforming is silky smooth.
Yeah, and I think the sword combat is good. Like I feel when you can land that last hit on stuff, it feels real nice.
Yeah, it's rewarding for sure. Now, I do have some slight issues with the platforming, and it's not even really with the way the controls work. It's the fact that the camera is pulled so far back. So in this game, like a lot of games, vines with thorns on them, spikes, those are no-go zones. And you know very quickly that if you see those, you need to avoid them. But the game, after a while, starts to mix up the surfaces that you can jump on with the vines and stuff. And so you have to be very careful that you land on the wall where you can actually land on and then grapple to. But sometimes they'll start making you jump from that wall to another wall, and then there's an object in the middle. So you need to jump off the wall, use the arc of your jump, wait for yourself to start coming down a little bit, then do the double jump, and then you can do like that midair sprint to get to the wall. And what I found is that because the camera is so pulled back, it's really hard to tell if Ori is going to touch those hazards. Like for those jumps specifically, because sometimes you literally have to get it lined up perfectly so that your arc gets you right over that object so you can just kind of soar over it and then double jump and then dash to the wall. And I've had a lot of problems where I'm like itching down, so I'm as low as possible on a wall to jump, and I end up hitting like the spikes or something like that. But it's not that it ever caused me to die, or maybe it did a couple times. But dying in this game isn't that big a deal, and that's why I don't view it as difficult as some of the more notorious games in the industry.
It's actually much less of a deal than the first game, because the first game you were much more responsible for your own save points.
Yeah. And here, like, it literally auto-saves with every little nugget of the game. And there are save points. There's fountains that also act as warp points. So you can physically save, and it will refill your health and your magic.
I would imagine that changes on, like, the harder difficulty.
Probably. Yeah, I'm playing normal. So you have a health meter, you have a stamina meter. Eventually you get an ability where you can use some of the stamina to heal yourself. That's when the game becomes easier. Up until you get that, there was a couple points where I was about ready to quit playing.
But also where it opens up a bit more, because it can throw weirder stuff at you and know that you have the ability to heal yourself, so it doesn't have to worry about basically having a wall there. Like it's a pretty smart power to give you to kind of like even things out for someone who maybe is having trouble getting through a certain section. Which I definitely used it here and there when I would.
I use it in boss fights every time.
Oh yeah.
But normal combat, I don't that much, because again the checkpoints are so generous that I'm like, it's not a big deal.
Yeah, and I really don't find it hard to avoid getting hit too much in combat. I mean, I think the main thing that I get injured by in normal gameplay is just not paying attention and not noticing that something is a spike.
Yep, like I was saying, like sometimes it's hard to see, because again, it's pulled back so far, it's hard to really see kind of the detail in the environment.
It's not that for me so much as they were a little more differently colored in the first game from the rest of the environment, and in this they blend in more. Like they didn't make them quite as glowy orange. So I find sometimes if I'm just not paying attention to the ground in front of Ori, I'll just run right into one, and I'm like, oh, okay, fine, yeah.
But the platforming in this is pretty demanding. Like I was saying earlier, it's like you're attached to a wall, jump over an object, double jump, and then there's like a dash that you can do in midair. Like that, you have to master that.
Yeah, I mean,
you end up using it over and over.
Yeah, I mean,
and over
they build slowly enough to it, but like, at a certain point, once they've given you all your main mobility tools, they expect you to master that stuff.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So, and the first game was like that too. I'm fine with that. I think I think some people are surprised by it because it looks like such a pleasant little like simple indie game. Like when you first see it, but like like you're gonna have to do some stuff in this one.
Yep.
There's some Super Meat Boy action. At times.
There's a couple sections where I was just like, as soon as I saw him, I was like, nope.
You're like, oh boy.
I was just like, nope. And
that's got to be optional.
Started doing something else. It's like one of those times where you've been playing for like a couple hours and you've made it through a couple tough parts already, and you get to that part where you're like, I can see where this is headed.
Yeah.
Now's a good time for me to write a script, I think.
Yeah, there's been a couple times that I got to usually when I get to another save point, the wells or something, I'm just like, that's enough for now.
Yeah.
Like, wow, like you don't realize how much it's taken out of you. Like you gotta be on point the whole time.
Yeah.
With some of those sections.
And here you're seeing there are merchants scattered around in the environments, and you can buy new abilities. You can level up your existing abilities if you want. Yeah. There's a lot more light RPG elements in this than there was before. By my last count, there are 18 different abilities that you can unlock throughout the course of the game. So you're just constantly adding new things, and some of them aren't like that big of a deal.
Yeah, it's definitely moved further in the Vania side of the Metroidvania equation.
Yeah, and I think
which
a lot
I'm
of people,
fine with.
Yeah, me too. I think a lot of people look at this game and like, oh, that's a kid's game.
Right.
It looks cute. It's adorable.
I mean, I'm
sure there are kids. Yeah, I'm sure that they can handle it. But
it's not a push. This is not the first playthrough of Yoshi.
This isn't like a 3-year-old's game.
No.
This is like a 7 or 8-year-old's game.
At least. Yeah.
Yeah. And if they're pretty good at games.
Yeah.
To be that age. And I think that's
more like if this is the kind of game they like.
Yeah.
Then they'll take to it.
Yeah.
But if they don't like jumping and platforming and slashing, they're probably not going to stick with it too long because it's hard.
It is hard. Would you recommend people buy this game?
Oh yeah.
It's what, $30?
I don't know. I got it on Game Pass.
Oh, they sent me a code, so I think it's around $30 or $40 maybe.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. Is it worth that?
I think it's definitely worth $30.
It's also as far as length is concerned, it's around 12 hours long.
Yeah, I mean it's like 3. I think it's supposed to be like 3 times as long as the first game.
That's about right. Because the first one was 4 or 5.
First game took about 5-6 hours the first time for me.
And I have not finished it, but at a certain point in the game, you're given a major task, and I've completed that task. And so I'm pretty much right at the end.
Unless
they're
doing a Nintendo thing.
That's possible.
I had heard when they said talking about it after it went gold, they said that it's 4 times as big as the first game.
They had said 30 hours. There's no way it's 30 hours. No. I've done everything I need to do, and I'm not even at 12. I'm at like 11 hours right now. And I'm guessing probably the end sequence will take an hour or two if they really stretch it. So for $40, $30,
it's $30 according
to
Vincent.
$30. I mean, that's good.
Yeah.
There's incentive to play it again. There's multiple difficulty settings. It's hard enough on normal.
There's an achievement for beating it under 4 hours.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get that.
I'd like to see somebody do that. You have to be really good.
That's what Twitch is for.
Absolutely. That's what speedrunners
I'm sure that someone does it with one hand, like blindfolded by now.
Yeah. But there you go. That's Ori and the Will of the Wisps, available for Xbox One and PC. As Vincent said in chat, it's $30, and it's available now. And I think that's thumbs up from both of us. Do you think the reviews are accurate? It's like a 9 aggregate right now.
I mean, I feel like that right now. I mean, talk to me after I'm done.
It's too high for me.
Yeah?
Yeah. It's a good game, but it's not 9 territory for me.
I don't know. I think it might be, but I really like that genre.
Yeah.
So thankfully, there's a lot more of them these days. But this is much more along the lines of what I want out of that genre.
Yeah, I'm happy with the direction that it's going. I think it will make it appeal to a wider audience as well, because some people may grow tired of just platforming mostly for the bulk of a game.
Yeah, I love the first game, but I did feel like it lacked some variety after a couple of hours.
Yep.
And
that's probably a big reason why it was only like 4 or 5 hours long.
Yeah.
Which was smart at the time. So you get a bigger game. I did not get tired of playing it because, again, you're getting new abilities constantly. And so I never grew tired of the gameplay. I will say this, though.
No, it's definitely always unfolding.
Yeah. Some of the stuff you get, you don't use that much. It's like you'll use it at that very instance. But the game doesn't do a lot of, like what Metroid does, in all honesty, where as it piles on your abilities, each level starts to use all of them. It doesn't really do that. Like, you have these core abilities, and a lot of them were in the first game. And those tend to be the ones that you use consistently, and the other stuff is almost like novelty a lot of the time. So, but they do keep giving you new stuff to fiddle with and have fun with, and that's a good way to pace a game. All right, it's time to move on. We're going to talk next about Bleeding Edge. Bleeding Edge is a 4 versus 4 competitive brawler from Ninja Theory. It is also, this is a big Xbox show, it's also coming to Xbox One and PC. The game had been in development before Microsoft purchased Ninja Theory, and then once Microsoft did purchase them, then they went back to the drawing board based on feedback from Microsoft on how to tweak it and adjust it. It's a 4 versus 4 competitive game with 3 different classes. There's tank, I wrote them down. There's tank, there's support, and there's damage. The tank...
Pretty standard triangle there.
Yeah, the damage has the most characters to choose from, whereas support and tank only have a handful apiece, and you can see them right there. Well, actually, there's 3 apiece for support and tank. There's going to be 12 characters total when it's all said and done. At launch, there's going to be 11. And Ninja Theory has gone on record saying that this game was originally intended to be a MOBA. And once Microsoft started talking to them about acquiring them and was like, hey, we'd like to put this on Game Pass, that's when they were like, okay, maybe we need to tweak this a little bit for the audience that this is going to reach. And I would say it still feels like a MOBA. And when I say that, what I mean is that you need people to play every role. It's not as stringent as a MOBA, where literally if somebody doesn't play ADC, there's nobody playing that entire lane on the map.
But it's not a free-for-all.
You will get destroyed in this game if you do not have, so they're 4-person teams, so you can have 2 players from one role, but you need all 3 roles on your team, or you have absolutely no chance.
Which role would you say is best to double up on?
Probably, I don't know. I mean, it's balanced pretty well, honestly. I feel like you could do well with 2 tanks. I would say you don't need 2 healers. That's the one thing I would say. But I think any other combination works to the point where you can win as long as your healer knows what they're doing and is good at that role. So it's teams of 4, and you don't want to leave your team. If you leave your team, that's how you die in this game, because you can see and they can see you at all times. So you know where the enemies are at all times, and it's very easy to get to them very quickly. If you start straying away from your teammates, they see it very quickly, and their entire team will come over. It's kind of like fish that swim in schools, and there's that one fish that's kind of swimming outside the school, and that's the one that the shark comes up and eats. That's kind of how it works in Bleeding Edge. As you can see, every character has a hoverboard. And again, even the hoverboarding is rated based upon whatever class the character is. If you're playing as a damage, you have a very fast hoverboard. Healers have like these almost like little UFOs that they fly around in. And so they're kind of flying. Some of them are kind of flying all the time. And then the tanks are really slow. It's literally like you're driving a tank across the map. And a big part of the strategy is knowing when to run, knowing when to get away, learning how long it takes for each character to get on the hoverboard and go. Because what happens in this game a lot is you're under siege by like a couple of the enemy players, and you're like, I gotta get out of here, I'm gonna die, and you go to get on your hoverboard to get away, and there's a delay, because you have to wait for the animation to happen to get on the board. So every character is different. So it's all about learning your character's timing for how long it takes to get on the board, to get away. There's a lot of stuff like that in this game in general. There's no single-player campaign, but there is kind of a setup for it. It's set in the year 2057. And people are modding themselves with cybernetic parts. It's a typical cyberpunk setting. They're replacing their limbs with mechanical limbs and biological augmentations to help them in combat. They don't really explain why this is all happening, why there's this big combat league or whatever the hell it is. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't. There is a steep learning curve to this game. So I started playing it Friday night and just got annihilated, destroyed, like every match, because each character in this game is crazy to learn. Like I said earlier, high learning curve in this game. So each character, the way it's set up is your face buttons, you have a jump button, and that's assigned to one of the face buttons. The other 3 face buttons are your abilities that you can have for each character. Left shoulder button is your super. As you can see, the super for her was transforming into the robot. Another one, like there's this guy who's like a metalhead who will play guitar and electrocutes everyone around him. So that part of the structure, I think for most people who have played games like Overwatch, I think they'll be able to latch onto it very quickly and understand. But it's how all that stuff works in concert and figuring out combos. So once you get good at this game, like I had people come up to me and just perform one combo and kill me. Literally within 2 seconds. Boom, 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 dead. And so the quest in this game is to not only figure out how you can create your own combos. And again, that's a very common thing in MOBA. You will never get good at a MOBA until you figure out your character's combos that work consistently. And that's the way this game works too. Like with this character here, like she's a ranged character that can shoot, but obviously the bullets aren't very powerful. So I learned to basically not even use my gun unless it was just me one-on-one. If I get around a group of 2 people, I have no chance. And that's when you start dashing, which is what you could see me doing right there. Dashing is governed by a stamina meter, so you can't just dash around like all day long. Eventually you run out and you die. You die a lot in this game, particularly the first time you start playing, because a lot of the people who are playing this were in the first beta, and then they joined for the second beta. As you play through the game, you unlock augments for your characters, and there's like up to 20 mods for each character in the game. So a lot of the people who have been playing for a long time had unlocked a lot of mods. I obviously had not, so I was at a distinct disadvantage. There's 5 maps. I only really got to use a couple in the beta. They didn't have them all in there, which is very typical for a beta. There's a ping system, like a lot of people have learned to use in Apex Legends, but really all it does, you can ping enemies and you can ping objects, but it still comes in handy. But it's not enough. Really, you need to use mics in this game. And you really need like a captain on your team who understands the game and instructs people what to do. Like tells your magic caster, heal the tank right now. Because if you don't have somebody coordinating that stuff, it's impossible to win a match. So if you have somebody on your team who communicates, it's a huge help, but nobody does anymore. Nobody uses mics anymore. I think I played 2 matches total with anybody that had a mic. It's such a huge departure from Xbox 360, where you would play games and everybody had one. It's like people have just rebelled against it, which for me made it...
That and the headset that came with the Xbox One is terrible.
It's trash. Total trash. In fact, I don't think I ever even tried to use it. I think it's still sitting in the box that I bought my Xbox One in. But communication is essential. And so my big fear for this game, and there's the super for the metalhead there. He just electrocutes everyone around, and I'll still die because I'm getting ganged up on by the entire team. So I really enjoyed this. I actually had more fun with this than I thought. I kind of thought that this might end up becoming a free-to-play game, or I thought it might even launch as free-to-play, but it's not. It is going to sell for $30. It comes March 24th to PC and Xbox One. There's tons of cosmetics in the game, which makes me believe that they've kind of hedged their bet a little bit, thinking that, you know what, maybe someday this game's going to have to go free-to-play. You can get, like, your own boards and just pretty much everything in the game. You can go in, and right now you can buy it with in-game currency. We'll see how long that lasts. It's one of those games people can bounce off of for sure. They can play it for an hour and be like, I don't get this. So there are tutorials. They're really boring and they're really long, but I felt like they did a pretty good job of teaching me the game, but you don't really get it until you're just thrown into the deep end of the pool and you start playing and understanding kind of what the strategies are and things like that. But yeah, that's it. That's Bleeding Edge, again, coming to PC and Xbox One, March 24th, I believe. Yep, March 24th for $30.
Or Game Pass?
It's on Game Pass, yeah. And would I recommend buying it for $30? Probably not. I haven't played the final version yet, but I will say this beta was pretty full-featured. It had a lot of stuff in it. Other than like all the maps, it had pretty much everything else. Almost the whole character roster was there. So there's not going to be a whole lot left to the imagination when it finally comes out on the 24th. So I feel like what I'm evaluating right now is probably what's going to be the final game. I mean, if you just put out a beta 2 weeks before your game comes out, chances are that's near final code. So I think you can mostly rely on my impressions from playing this over the past weekend onto whether you're going to want to dive in or not. Unfortunately for Bleeding Edge, the avalanche of games is really starting to come. Yeah. And it could really get lost in the shuffle.
Would have been a nice February release.
It sure would have, or January would have been great too. So I have a fear it might get lost in the mosh, but we'll see. All right, let's move on. We're going to talk next about the final Xbox Series X specs. I think I may have said that before, actually, on this show. Where I was like, oh, I think we got everything, but the price and the release date, we didn't.
No.
There was a lot more to reveal, and Microsoft did that yesterday. And I'm interested to hear your perspective on this. So today, Sony announced that tomorrow, which is a shame because we can't talk about it, tomorrow they're unveiling the PlayStation 5. It sounds like a deep dive on like the tech. Which leads me to believe it was probably going to happen at GDC. GDC gets canceled, and they're like, well, let's just do it anyway. Because it is kind of falling right during the week when GDC was supposed to happen.
Certainly suspicious timing.
Yeah. The fact that Microsoft literally blew everything out yesterday. Now all we have left is exact release date and price.
Yeah.
Everything else is known now about Xbox Series X.
And let's be honest, we might not get them this year.
It's possible. You mean the consoles?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it is. It's starting to get dicey. And if it is, the quantities are going to be limited. Like, you think trying to get toilet paper is bad. Imagine trying to get a PlayStation 5 in November when they've only manufactured like 700,000 of them. I mean, we could do that. Could happen. Very easily could happen. But Microsoft is like, whatever. It's just going full blast. And yesterday, a series of stuff, mostly done with Digital Foundry, was released. And it's smart. I mean, they're choosing the right partner to do that with.
They're leaders in that space.
And it makes perfect sense. And I think they had done something with Engadget before. Yeah. So I think they're targeting the right publications to do this stuff. So the nuts and bolts of it, basically the tech specs were exactly what we had been saying all along. They really hadn't changed that much. Series X has 4 times the processing power of an Xbox One, and its GPU running at 12 teraflops is twice that of Xbox One X and more than 8 times of the original Xbox One. The console, we already know about the extensive backwards compatibility for it. But the cool thing about it is when the console plays backwards compatible games, they will have HDR. That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, that's a neat trick. Like, they've been doing some really cool stuff with the backwards compatibility without having to touch the code of the original games.
Yep.
And I think they've hit on a really cool feature there.
Now, the one thing that they announced that has people freaking out a bit is the way they're handling external storage. So everybody knows already, it has a hyper-fast SSD drive. One of the other tech demos that they released actually was a loading test showing how much faster the Series X loads State of Decay 2 than Xbox One X.
And it does.
And it big time change.
Yeah, it's a good game for that.
That's a perfect game for that because it's completely unoptimized, and in all honesty, the code is kind of crap. So that was a good example to use, and it is stark, the difference. However, there are drawbacks that come with using an SSD, and I think we probably could have figured this out before on our own if we had thought about it, but I didn't. And so now it's come out that because it uses an SSD drive, and because they've known all along it was going to use an SSD drive, the way the games are built and the way the games work, they're basically using the SSD drive as extra memory while the game is running. And therefore, and there's fancy terminology for it.
You have to run...
I'm sure somebody on YouTube is going to blow me out for not using the exact term for it, but
basically you have to use that drive to run a Series X game because they're going to expect that kind of performance to run properly.
Yep, which means that you cannot use your existing mechanical external hard drive for Xbox Series X games. Now, they will work for backwards compatible games. So if you have a big library of old Xbox games and you really enjoy going back and playing those, you can put those on the drive, and then you can play them from that drive. You can even put Series X games on the drive. You just can't play them from the drive. You can transfer them from the drive to your SSD. But
and if you have slow internet, that's a good thing.
Right. It's a really good thing. The issue really is that because of this, it is creating its own proprietary external storage for Xbox Series X that are basically these little cartridges. So that slot that's on the back of the Xbox Series X that on the one episode we're like, what's that for? And people were asking us what it was for, and we were like, we don't really know. Well, now we know what it's for. It's for those cards.
It's a memory card slot.
It's a memory card slot. And so there are memory cards for Xbox Series
Pretty
X.
much.
The last console or platform to have that was the Vita. All I remember about that was the price fixing and the price gouging on those cards.
Those are very overpriced. They're still overpriced.
They're still insanely expensive. I bought one and never bought another one. So right now,
a couple of years ago, I went back on because I was, when I moved, I had all my stuff out and looked at saw all my games again. I'm like, I wonder if they have better, because I had a mid-size card for that because I didn't want to spend all the money on it. And I was like, I bet I could get one cheap. No, you cannot. Those things were made for a brief amount of time by Sony and only Sony for that thing and a couple other devices, and that price has not dropped at all.
And I think people are a little concerned that it may be a somewhat similar case. My hope, obviously, is that Microsoft licenses it out to third parties, that third parties can create cheaper versions of it.
That seems unlikely. But, I don't know what these things are going to cost, or we don't know how big they are. The word is that the internal on the system is a terabyte, which is not nothing.
Yeah. I have it on my PS4 Pro, and it's full already.
Oh, yeah.
It happens.
But, I don't know. My hope would be these things would be terabyte, about $100-$150.
So right now, look, this is apples and oranges, but just to give you a ballpark idea, right now a 1 terabyte external SSD hard drive is about $220. Do you think, even if your pricing ends up accurate and it's $100 for a terabyte, do you think people are going to go for that?
I don't know if you have a choice, really.
Yeah.
I'm going to need more than 1 terabyte of space on these things, especially because of how the games are going to get bigger.
Yeah.
So
4K, the textures, they're going to be. Look at already at Modern Warfare. It's 200 gigs. It's been out for 2 months. It's 200 gigs.
That's
a fifth of your
hard drive, and that's even more because you're still going to have the OS in there.
Yeah.
So
yeah. You're not getting the full.
You're not getting the full terabyte. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. So HDR for backwards compatibility, that's a pretty cool feature. They have tweaked the controller a little bit, not much, but a lot of it I think takes cues from the Xbox Elite Series 2 controller.
Which is good.
It's not on that level. Don't get me wrong. And actually, I just reviewed that controller on SIFTD HQ this morning.
Have they said anything about using those on the new system?
What, the
Elites?
Oh, they're fine. Yeah, they're going to work fine. They'd be idiots.
Yeah.
Dude, $180 controller better work on everything. Yeah. And it does. It
better work on my microwave.
Seriously, it better work on everything. And it does. They've done a really good job of making sure that works with all their platforms.
Because I don't intend to switch to the new controller if I don't have to.
Yeah. Well, why would you?
Yeah.
No, the Elites are still better than the new controller. It just added a couple things. So, it changed a lot for comfort. So the bumpers on the controllers have been rounded, which some people may not complain about, but I noticed that they were annoying after a while on the old Xbox One controllers. I appreciate that. They also have a brand new technology in them called, and I don't know if this is in the series or in the Elite controllers, called Dynamic Latency Input, or DLI. And basically, it matches inputs to what is happening on screen, resulting in milliseconds shaved off of controller response time. That's the official verbiage from Microsoft, whatever the hell that means. A couple other things.
Means esports.
Pretty much, yeah. That's it. Or even for fighting games, if you want an advantage or whatever.
If you're using a controller for that for some reason.
Yeah, some people do.
Get me an arcade stick with that in it.
Yeah. They reduced the space for the triggers, and so it looks like the carry time is a little less, which is something that you can customize on the Elite controllers.
Yeah. I think you can cut that in half if you want.
We can, yeah. And I don't know if they're going to allow you to do that here, but it looks like there's going to be a shorter pull. And then the final new feature of the controller is that the texturing is different. And that is one thing I did notice about the Elites, is that it has the rubber grip all the way around. And then the Xbox One controllers just have the grip on the side. Yeah.
I like how the Elite does it way better.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I mean, the Elite's an amazing controller. Let's just be honest.
Yeah, it's like holding a really good basketball.
Yeah, somebody on the site called it the Rolls Royce of controllers. Absolutely on the money accurate. They're amazing, but they're $180. So.
Yeah, they better be for what they cost.
Exactly. And velocity architecture is actually the terminology for why you cannot use the mechanical external drives for Series X games.
Okay.
Yeah. Velocity architecture allows game storage to become additional memory.
Those are big words to say blast processing.
It allows storage to become additional memory while also saving CPU overhead and efficiently loading assets like textures. Yeah.
So basically it does what they said the cloud would do this gen.
Yeah. Pretty much.
But it probably actually does it.
It probably actually does it this time because you're not relying on the interwebs. And then one of the other things that they showed, one of the new features was quick resume. They did a tech demo of that. They put out a separate video for that we have in our B-roll. And that's a pretty handy little feature.
Yeah.
I mean, you can suspend up to like 4 games at once and then just go back to them.
Yeah,
whenever you want.
Like that.
That's sweet. No more like going back to the dashboard, hitting the start button, selecting close app, then going and selecting the app that you want, and then waiting for that to load up.
Yeah, I mean, at least like the Xbox One does. If you let it turn off, and then you turn it right back on, it will remember where you were.
Yeah, but just for one game,
just for a little bit.
Yeah,
only for one game.
Yeah.
So yeah, and as someone who does sometimes forget the system is on and let
I
it turn
do
off,
it all the time.
Yeah, that would be a handy feature for me.
Yep. Another thing we should mention about the external memory cartridges is that it includes a heat sink to protect the drive from overheating. And that's really the big reason why you can't just use any hard drive into that port, is because it'll overheat. It's not made for that port.
Right.
So you need something with a heat sink to dissipate some of the heat. A Seagate 1 terabyte external right now costs $215. So I think your estimate of $100 might be a little on the low end.
Unless Microsoft is just willing to eat some of it.
I mean, it's eating everything right now. I mean, it's letting people access its first party. I mean, people are going to be able to play Bleeding Edge and Ori and the Will of the Wisps for like $9.
Yep.
I mean, it's eating costs left and right. So it would not surprise me if Microsoft bit the bullet. It knows more than anyone how important getting out of the gate strong is. And I think
they sure didn't this gen.
No. And I think it would be smart for them to bite the bullet in some ways and lose some revenue off the top to build that install base.
And also you have the lesson of the Vita in front of you. So
I mean, that didn't teach them not to do this. I mean, they didn't have a choice, I guess.
I mean, I don't mind that so much as, I don't mind having to buy a separate memory thing for the Vita, except the problems with the Vita was it had nothing internally.
Yeah.
Like, it had
you had to have
barely enough for one game.
Yeah.
And the price on those cards was crazy.
Yeah.
It was,
you're right. That is a big, big difference between.
Like, if you need those
Series
special
X and
proprietary
Vita.
things with a heat sink to get this thing to work properly to expand the memory, fine. But I will forgive a lot if you price it at a reasonable level and not just be like, well, if you want more, screw you, like Sony did.
Yep. So that's it. There's nothing left to the imagination for Series X.
Also, it's as tall as 2 GameCubes stacked on top of each other with the Game Boy Advance thing on
The player.
The player.
The Game Boy player on the bottom.
So 2 of those. That's a hefty beast.
Well, I don't know if you noticed, but the Game Boy player on the GameCube turns it into a cube.
Into an actual cube.
Yeah, because before that it's actually oblong.
Yeah.
And then when you stack it, then it really is a cube.
Which indicates that that was always the plan.
Right. Yeah. All along. And backwards compatibility. That's what it was. They're like, we're going to make it backwards compatible with one of our
I still have it. I mean, I've had that thing on my GameCube so long that I forget it's not part of the GameCube.
Yeah. But a lot of people never had it. Yeah.
It's really good.
It is. It still works great.
Yeah.
Even though my drive died on my GameCube, that still works. Part of my GameCube still works.
Solid state.
Exactly. Yeah, because there's no moving parts on it other than the things you use to screw it into the bottom. So that's it. There's nothing left to the imagination for Xbox Series X.
Except the release date.
Price and release date. That's it. And I think we're all assuming 500 at this point. Probably late October,
Probably November or next spring.
Or never.
Who knows? I mean, manufacturing issues because of factory shutdowns from the virus is going to be a real factor moving forward, especially if concerns about it continue into July and August, as Trump suggested, which I don't think he means that you're going to be locked down till July or August, but it's going to remain a social concern at least that long.
Yeah, I mean, they may still be banning large gatherings at that point. Who knows? It's insane.
Could be a long time before we go to Disneyland again, folks.
Or anywhere, for that matter.
Buckle up.
I'm so glad that all these games are coming out. It's going to save me. It's going to save a lot of people. It may get some people into gaming, actually.
I admit now I really wish Cyberpunk hadn't slipped.
Yep. How perfect would it have been?
Yeah.
Yep, to just grind through that game.
You know what I could use right now? A dystopia.
Well,
I thought about replaying Last of Us before Last of Us 2, but I'm like, man, that might be too on the nose.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, speaking of the coronavirus, how can you not talk about it with anything that you're doing right now? There are other consequences of the coronavirus, and maybe the biggest one for the industry, unless the consoles were to be delayed, is that right after the show ended last week, we found out that E3 was, in fact, completely canceled.
Mere hours.
Yep, which sucks. So we're talking about this a week late, but we haven't been able to talk about it.
But we predicted it several hours early.
We did, actually. We thought it was going to be closed for good, and it turns out it was.
What did you say? You thought it had a 20% chance of happening?
Yeah.
That was pretty accurate.
Well, I mean, honestly, it should have been 5 if it was 3 hours later it was canned. I mean, I think
it was a fair
guess
for the moment.
Common sense, though. It's where we're seeing it with the NFL right now. It's rebelling against it, trying to hold out as long as it can.
I never thought I'd see a day when the NBA canceled March Madness. I got
NCAA,
yeah. But I will say this: in the wake of no sports happening, I love all the weird things that are trying to rise up to that. I ran into this thing on YouTube the other day called Marbula One, which is
that the marble racing?
Marble racing.
I saw it
on slot car tracks. It is fascinating. Look this thing up, Marbula One on YouTube. It's they have a whole season with qualifying races, then the actual race, and there's an announcer who announces it as though it's really happening, and the marbles have personalities and names, and there's backstories to them, and they have crowd groups, the crowds are there, and they even have little blue marbles that are the security guards at the end of the aisles. It's astounding. Look it up.
Slot car racing is awesome, actually. Have you ever done it?
Yeah.
It's amazing. I don't understand why it's not more popular. It is a really cool, fun thing to do.
They used to do that up in Japantown in San Francisco when I lived there, and I would go watch on one weekend. Sometimes I'd go over to the Mikawa over there and watch the slot car races.
Some of those cars really go 45 miles an hour.
They're crazy.
It's really insane.
And you see the guys tweaking them and working on the things, and they have little workbenches with these tiny little screwdrivers and tools, and it's fascinating.
It is.
It's really neat.
Cool. Unfortunately,
I expect marble racing to be a mini game in the next Yakuza game. By the way, Sega, you need to get on that.
Unfortunately, E3 2020 cannot be saved by the Marbula 500 or whatever you call it.
Oh, I think it might. You put that in the lobby, and I'm coming.
Yeah. So it's not happening. IM8-Bit had pulled out right before, which is a big reason why we were saying it's probably not going to happen. And then shortly after, the ESA announced that it is, in fact, not happening, but it did say it's going to try to organize a digital-only event, just like we also said in the episode that they'll probably just coordinate. Everyone puts out their Nintendo Directs at the same 2 or 3 day period, and they'll probably coordinate so they're not releasing them at the same time. In a lot of ways, it'll still feel like E3, which brings me to my point. Is E3 ever coming back? Is there a need for E3 now?
Yes, I think E3 will come back in some form. I'm not saying it's going to be successful, but I think the ESA wants that sweet public ticket money. and they will bring it back next year in some form that they think will be more amenable to that idea.
I mean,
I don't know what it will look like, but there will be another E3. It just may not be something we recognize as E3.
I mean, it may be something that we recognize as E3.
That's the other
people who have gone to it for a long time.
They could go the other direction with it. That's true.
It may not be what most people out there think of when they think of E3. Mm-hmm. And I would be okay with that. Like, I have no problem with it going back to being smaller, more intimate, more one-on-one time.
See, that's the. I mean, I don't know if they'll go that direction or if they go the other direction and make it basically PAX.
Yeah. That's what it sounds like they were trying to do.
Yeah, I think there's more money in PAX, basically.
For sure.
And I'm curious if they're going to refund anybody. I don't know what the procedure on that has been. But I would guess. I mean, I think they're
going to have to.
They kind of got lucky.
It's either that or a class action lawsuit.
They kind of got lucky here, like because they get to cancel what was probably going to be a disaster of a show with a very good excuse, and take another year to refigure this thing out.
There's a lot of stuff like that where this actually kind of worked out. Like I saw like some announcement where this like big women's hockey tournament was canceled because of the corona. It's like, oh, basically you just saved yourselves money by canceling that tournament that no one's going to go to, that you're going to lose money on. It's actually become like a thing of convenience for some industries that are struggling because they can bow out of stuff without it looking like they're failing, essentially. They can be like, oh, we're doing it for the public health and safety, but...
You're welcome, XFL fans.
Yeah, I mean, there's a good example. Now the XFL doesn't have to pay its players game checks for the next, like, however many weeks there was going to be. I mean, I'm sure the XFL was like, hey, this actually helps us as a business.
Because Vince McMahon hasn't canceled any of the WWE shows, has he?
No. I mean, WrestleMania as of right
still
now
happening.
is still on. I don't think it'll happen. I think eventually, because I think it's in Tampa Bay, and I think the government is going to eventually say, oh, no, you're not going to have like 50,000 people together in our community.
I mean, of all things, that doesn't make sense to do that in front of nobody.
That's the event you don't want to go to as well, because the sweat's flying off. They actually go into the crowd like... It's not happening. It's definitely not. And if the WWE won't cancel it, Tampa Bay is going to cancel it.
They could still do it with nobody in the arena, and like just because the pay-per-view is the money.
It is,
or subscriptions to the WWE streaming service.
Yep.
Like that's what they want out of that. So I could see them doing it anyway.
It's possible with no crowd. Yeah, I mean they did the last UFC fight with no fans in Brazil. Literally just the octagon and the announcers around the edge and the fighters in the cage, and that was pretty much it. These stories do not relate to E3, however. They are different beasts from what we're talking about with something like E3. Do you see any possible way where it doesn't come back, though?
No.
No way at all?
No. I think the ESA will bring something back that they call E3 next year.
Now, see, I would invoke the same percentage as last week. I would say that there's a 20% chance that E3 never comes back.
Maybe. But I think the ESA wants money. And I think they want money from the general public, and I think the way you get that is to put E3 back. I mean, I think it's going to be more of an E-for-all looking thing. Hell, if they really are not kidding about postponing it as opposed to canceling it, and they do it like in November, that's literally E-for-all. Like, this is literally what that was.
Well, the response to this on SIFTD, and again, it's anecdotal. We're not as big as IGN, so we don't get if you're taking a poll from our users, it's not going to be as accurate as an IGN or a GameSpot, but in general, the users on SIFTD were just like, screw it. Like, who cares if it comes back? And a lot of them didn't think it was ever coming back. And so when you put that into perspective and you're saying, okay, they're going to turn it into a consumer show, it doesn't sound like the consumers want to go anymore.
No.
And then what happens? So if you do that and it fails, then is E3 done?
Then E3 is done. Except, I'm sure, the executives and marketing people still meet.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Yeah.
But the other thing is like the hype. I think the hype, like, spectacle is pretty much done. Just because I think what you're going to have here is, as I've said before about Sony, every company this year is going to learn that not doing E3 does not impact your sales in the fall.
Yeah. Well, again, it's kind of like what I was saying earlier about how some companies have used the coronavirus as an excuse to bail on stuff that they were going to lose money on.
Is a good excuse to like, oh, let's not do E3. I mean, but even if E3 was still happening, if I was like Ubisoft, I'd be like, oh, we're just not going to do that. We're just going to do digital this year.
But what I was going to say is that it could turn into a scapegoat for publishers who were failing anyway. They could be like, well, they could say, well, with no E3, we didn't have a chance to really market our stuff to the mass audience and blah, blah, blah.
I don't think that's going to be a problem, though. If anything, I think game sales are going to be up.
Oh, after this, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, Steam has had its busiest day ever on Saturday, I think it was.
I mean, Animal Crossing Could you pick a better time for Animal Crossing to come out than this Friday? Not only is it a high-profile game people have been waiting for a long time, it's an island getaway. That's what the game is. It is
literally quarantine the game.
Perfect timing for Animal Crossing. I mean, Nintendo could not have nailed it any better than it has. And you have Doom Eternal coming out this Friday.
A little more interested in Doom, I admit.
Yeah, I think probably the majority of our audience would agree with you on that one. But the other thing, too, with Animal Crossing is it's a great time waster. You can burn through the hours playing that game and accomplish nothing, but the time does disappear.
Yeah.
And so I think it's going to be the best-selling Animal Crossing ever, particularly for its first month sales. I think
it was going to be anyway, but I think it got a boost here.
Yeah, absolutely. Will you miss E3 if it's gone, Matt?
The show? Not really. The people I see at E3, yes.
Yeah.
But because it's more of a social occasion to me at this point.
Well, there's hundreds of people that I see for the first time since last E3.
Yeah.
And that's not going to happen this year. And that legitimately makes me sad.
That is sad.
Because I think
it's not like we can go see them anywhere.
Yeah, now we can't go see them anywhere. I mean, the other part of it, too, is I think in our industry with the group of friends that we have, sometimes you're like, oh, I'm going to see them at E3. So you don't make plans. So maybe this will actually get me out of the house a little bit to make plans with people and actually see them face-to-face outside of the confines of E3. It could be a good thing, ultimately. So we'll see. What'd you say, Mitch?
I was going to say, do you think that because, the news coming out of E3 coming into this was already blunt and not very good because Sony dropped out and then the company that was going to work on the presentation dropped out and they're getting blowback for it, now they got to cancel. Do you think that the time they have now to be able to, they have a full year to be able to fix everything? Do you think that's enough time that they could still bring it back in the way they would want to by mending the bridges that they broke?
It helps. It can't hurt.
Someone could. I don't know if the ESA can. I think that is enough time to accomplish that task with the right team. I don't know if they have the right team.
They need to gut that team.
Pretty much.
Yeah. They need to get some young blood in there because obviously what they're doing right now is not working.
You need influencers.
And I would be sad if E3 went away. Because,
Yeah,
what really convinced me to join this industry was the first time I went to E3. When I was in college and I was running my fan site, and I thought this is what I wanted to do. I saved up my money to go to E3, ended up losing it all at the airport, but that's another story. But once I got to E3, that was it. Sealed, done deal. Literally, the minute I walked into those doors in Atlanta and saw it, I was like, oh my God. I had no idea. I had heard about it and, rumors and people talking about it. But I didn't realize it was as big a deal as it really was until I walked in there. And I was like, oh my God. It just felt so alive. And it was associating games with stuff I never associated with them with before.
Right. And it was, my first one was 99. And I remember that was episode 1 year. So they had the racer, the full size pod racer.
And
was there
64 had Eternal Darkness there, I remember.
Yep. And I just remember going in and I remember thinking, I have never been in a room with this many things I am interested in all at once before. Because also that was the period where you just did not see, now seeing a full-size pod racer on a billboard would not be that weird,
right? Yeah.
But this was a time when geek stuff just wasn't out in the world.
It's not like it is
and
now.
I'd never seen anything like that before, and I'm like, I have got to figure out a way to be here every year, and so I did.
Yep.
But to me, the show now is a shadow of what it once was.
Yeah.
And I will not probably I already miss E3 because E3 the last 5 to 10 years has not really been E3 to me.
Yeah.
Especially once we stopped once G4 ended and game trailers ended and there was no longer live production there and it was it was just sort of Jeff Keighley in a booth somewhere interviewing people instead of a big on the floor
production
thing.
Yeah.
It just became I'm just going to go see my friends and I'm going to do what I need to do and then I'm going to go find Sessler at the bar, and that's going to be the end of the week. Yeah, it's basically, what. Yeah. And honestly, that's just what happens anytime you're in town with Adam. So it didn't have to be E3 for that. So you asked if I'd miss E3. I'm like, yeah, I already miss E3. What would go away here is not the thing I miss.
Yeah.
I miss having an excuse or a reason or time designated to see all these people that I only see once or twice a year.
Yeah.
But like beyond that, like I don't think E3 has been what E3 was to me back in the day for a long time.
Yep. Yeah, I mean the good news is we won't talk about it again for a long, long time.
Yep.
They finally gave us the final word, so we'd have to sit here on GameFace for the next 6 months being like, is it going to happen? Is it not going to happen? We know.
Well, we'll talk about it, I'm sure, when June rolls around and they do all their digital presentations.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they'll still
You think it'll be called, they'll try to call it E3 still?
Yeah.
I think they will, too. They'll call it, like, E3 All Digital Access or something crappy.
Also, here's a thing that one of my friends found, that she was digging through magazines or something, I think, old magazines or cleaning out stuff, and there was an article on maybe she found it on the internet, I don't know, but it was an article on the formation of E3. It was a magazine from like 95 or something, and it was about the formation of E3 and how there was kind of a schism and like a little rivalry developing between the people organizing E3 and the people that do CES, because E3 was a split off from CES.
Yeah, it was a part of CES
basically
at first. Yeah,
and so E3 becoming its own entity was sort of considered like a betrayal by them kind of thing. Here's the thing: in the article, they show the thing, E3, but they say that the organizers say that it should be pronounced E-cube. Like they wanted it to be E-cubed.
Way. Well, that didn't work.
And it's like, nope. It's not how that worked out.
That's like when Nintendo sent me an email saying that we needed to spell GameCube with all capital letters.
All caps in the TM thing. Yeah,
that's not happening, bro.
Nintendo GameCube all in caps.
Yeah.
And it's like, mm-mm.
No, you don't have that much power. You can't tell us what to do in that area. That's
You're not my dad.
Exactly.
Nintendo might think it's your dad, but they're not your dad.
For some kids, it is.
But I thought I'd never heard that before. E-cubed.
Yeah.
E-cube.
I hadn't heard that either.
Like, yeah, that wasn't going to catch on, dude.
Nope, and it didn't.
No.
So anyway,
I thought that was fun.
We'll see. Maybe they give us more information about next year when June rolls around and they're trying to organize this loosely collected together, cobbled together video presentation. I don't even know. We'll see. But for right now, E3 2020 canceled and E3 2021 is up in the air. So we'll see how it goes.
Yep.
All right, it's time to move on to our last topic of episode 203. We're going to talk about Nioh 2. I'll just say right off the top, I played the demo. I'm not touching this game. I have no interest in playing this game. Yeah. However, Matt has been playing the game, and Mitch has been playing the game. And I think Mitch is actually a little bit farther into it than you are.
I think you would have to be.
So I am going to be the man in the middle for this discussion. I'll be the moderator while you two guys discuss the game. Mitch, welcome to the show, man.
Oh, thank you.
You ready to start talking about Nioh 2?
Yeah, let's do it.
My first question for you is it as hard as I think it is based upon the demo that I played?
It's harder.
Harder than I think, or just harder than the first game?
It's harder than
both?
the first game, and probably harder than the demo.
Yeah, I would say both.
There's more features available to you, but at the same time, the enemies have just as much skills, if not more skills than you. So it can become just as difficult.
The beginning of the game is not the demo. After you get through the choose your weapon part, it's not the same area as the demo. But I did still get killed by the first enemy.
Oh, really?
Like my friend was in the room. I was like, yeah, when I played this before, I got killed by the first guy. And she's like, really? Like, that's weird for you. I'm like, yeah. And I walked. It was one of those little demon baby things.
Yeah.
And it just jumps on me and eats my face. And I die. She's like, wow. I'm like, yes. Welcome to this game.
They throw rocks too, don't they?
Yeah, they throw rocks at a distance. But like this, he just like charged me, jumped on my face, and that was it. That was it. That was my first thing in this game, was just getting murdered by the first trash mob.
Now, Mitch, have you played a lot of Dark Souls and Bloodborne and all that kind of stuff?
A little bit of Demon Souls, not much Dark Souls, but I played a crap ton of Bloodborne, finished the crap out of that. That took me like 2 months.
So how difficulty-wise, where would you place this game relative to Bloodborne?
Hardest I've ever played.
Harder than...
This is the hardest game of this kind I've ever encountered.
Wow.
It is
that's crazy.
By far.
I knew it, though. I knew it. As soon as I played that demo, I was like, this is the hardest game.
That demo was crazy hard, too.
And just for context, this B-roll that we're playing right now, this is level 3, so mission 3. Enemies that are in this one were in the demo that I played, so some of these I recognize, but some of them are completely new, and like Matt said, the first level is not the same level, so I'm curious how far that level is in the game.
I don't know. But I mean, not that the early levels were all that much simpler. I'm still barely at the end of the first mission, and I played for like 2 hours. My problem with this game so far is that it's very hard. The combat, there's a lot to it. Like unlike something like Dark Souls, there's actually a whole lot of systems. Because it's Team Ninja, so there's a lot of systems happening here. You got to learn how to use these. Some of it's the same as the first game. Some of it's a little different. And quite frankly, at this time, with everything that's going on in the world, I do not need this shit right now.
So we were talking earlier about how it's perfect timing for Animal Crossing.
Yeah.
It is the worst possible timing for Nioh 2.
Yeah, I am bouncing. I mean, I don't think it's the worst possible time for Nioh 2 in the sense that, like, tons of people are enjoying it. People I know are enjoying it. Fine. This is not what I want right now.
I think a lot of
and
people
it's not
don't
the
want to
game's
be
fault.
frustrated. Yeah.
But Ori is hard enough as it is.
Yeah.
And it is a pleasant sort of magical hard. And,
and to
this is
piggyback
more
off
like, what the hell? Like, I swear to God, there's so many particle effects in this thing that sometimes I don't even know what I'm hitting.
That was a problem with Bleeding Edge, actually.
It's hard for me to tell what's happening, and I feel like I know people praise the combat system from here to eternity, but like, it feels loose and slippery to me. Like, I don't know. And I said that about the demo, and everybody said it was crazy. I find this imprecise in a way that Bloodborne and Dark Souls simply are not.
That's weird for Team Ninja.
I'd say I would agree with you. It's a little loosey-goosey compared to the past games, but I don't think it hinders it to the point where I feel like it makes the game
it's a
not
choice.
great.
I don't think it's an error. I think it's something they chose to make it feel like I just don't like it as much.
Yeah, and to piggyback
Bloodborne.
what you said about the systems, Matt, something about this game is progression is insane in this game. There are so many systems in progression, whether that's your regular stats, your weapons. Every time you use a certain kind of weapon, that gets points.
That levels up.
That
There's
levels
so many
up.
skill trees. There's
They have
skill
the
trees
skill
for every
tree for
weapon
that.
type.
You have every weapon type. You have one for your transformations. You have one for your ninjutsu.
Holy
you have
crap.
Like, you'll see it on the menu just a second that there are so many sub-menus and menus, and
It's just system on system on system.
and you'll see right there,
system.
I have 6 points that I cannot spend because I have not beaten a certain mission to unlock the ability to be able to use my point on it. And so,
And you can't use those points anywhere else either,
No.
because you earn them for that specific weapon.
tree.
Yeah.
That specific.
and,
That sucks.
and it's basically just like punishes you.
And
they're
and
trying
the
to-
upgrades are so incremental. Like, it's tiny little.
Well, when you have that
steps.
many, that's usually how it is.
Like, in context, this level, I'm still on this level. I'm trying to beat the boss last night till like 2 a.m. I got so close, and then my roommate goes, "That's harsh," because it was like an inch left. But when I was doing it, I was at level 22. Like,
You're at level 22 already, and you're only 3 hours into the game?
I'm level 13,
No,
and I'm
he's
on the first
13.
mission. Like, yeah.
So there you're just leveling up constantly.
Just grind, because it hits a point where I'm like, nah, I'm not going to win that. I'm just going to go back and bank my points.
I guess, again, if the...
I mean, that's Souls basics,
It is,
but, like,
yeah.
the
it
upgrades
goes
are
up like
so
2
slow.
pixels
Yeah.
or whatever when
It's
you
very
bump
slow.
it up.
Yeah, if you can't beat the boss, my instinct is go through the level again, kill
Yep.
every single enemy again, bulk
Yep.
up on the points, spend it on some upgrades. Maybe you'll find a new weapon or two in the process,
Yep,
but
that's
most of the
all you
time
can
you
do.
won't do that. Or did I not find a secret path that... Because basically, what's difference between Nioh games and probably the Dark Souls, the Bloodborns, is each mission is its own condensed level. But it's similar in the aspect of each of them interconnect. That secret passageways leads to the beginning of that level, or a secret passageway will lead to another section. So basically, you want to go through the entire space and kill every enemy in there. And once you do, then usually you're powerful enough to take on the boss. Oh, and here's me dying constantly. Have fun with that.
Well, I mean, that is the game.
I do enjoy the little thing it tells you about how you died.
Yes, who killed you and
Who
with
killed you
what
and how.
weapon? It's like a little clue for you.
Now, I mean, to me, I think the way that they're handling those points, how you said you have these skill points that you can't spend, is probably just keeping you from walking through the game. My guess
it is definitely a limiter on.
Yeah, they're just like, if we gave you these right now, you would just probably one-shot most of these enemies. And which that's a lame way to do it, in all honesty.
Yeah, Dark Souls doesn't do that. You can overpower yourself as much as you want.
Right.
It's just there's diminishing returns on how many souls you get from the enemies you're killing in a particular area.
That seems like a better way
to do it.
Seems like a better way.
I think it is too.
Yeah.
But
I haven't experienced it, but it sounds to me as
I
an
also
outsider.
feel a little better in Dark Souls when I get stuck on things. Because usually Dark Souls has a way to like go back and go somewhere else and poke around a different direction, and maybe you'll find a different way. Maybe you'll find something else to do. Maybe you'll find something. That doesn't feel like it happens in this so much because it's incremental, like specific, like self-contained missions, which are big and
it's
winding.
telling you have to complete this mission before you can do X, Y, and Z.
But I just hit a lot of points, and this happened in the first Nioh as well. After about halfway through the game, I just hit a point where every time I'd come across like a new section, I just see the thing I had to fight now, and I was like, it's just,
that's how I feel
so
in these games all the time.
So like
that is my expression.
I think these games are probably the Nioh games are probably just too hard for me, and I'm not like interested or hooked on them enough to want to get good enough to overcome that, and that's not true of the Souls games.
Here's what I would say: these games are nowhere near as interesting to me as the Souls games.
No, I think visually they are. Like I would love to watch like someone play through this. Like as an expert and see all the monster designs and see all the cool stuff in it.
Oh, the graphics are way better on a technical level.
Well, and the cutscene. The cutscenes are really well made.
Yeah.
Like the action in them. I mean, Matt, you haven't hit it yet for a certain story cutscene that happens, but there's a really cool action sequence that's really well with the cinematography. So.
But there aren't many, right?
No, they're always at the end or sometimes at the beginning of a mission, depending on. And I will say it's not much, but the story is a little bit better than the first game, but it still kind of throws you in and expects you to, figure it out.
It's just, I think my problem with this franchise, now that there are 2 games, I guess it is a franchise, is it just doesn't seem interesting to me. I don't care about the characters in the game or the setting or the plot. I played the demo of this. I did play the first one for a handful of hours before I gave up. And it just, I don't know. It's just something about it just doesn't catch my interest in general.
I like the setting. I think it's interesting. I just, it's just such a dick. Like that's really the only way I can put it. Like I Dark Souls feels like a conversation, and like Nioh feels like someone just kicking me until I just say fine, stop. Like it's a little. I find Nioh to be a little more abusive.
Would you recommend this to Souls fans?
I would recommend they try the demo first.
Yeah. I don't know if you can
look,
now.
if you like the first game, you're gonna like this. Like it's
you
not.
Think so?
It's not that different. No, it is harder, but like if you got through the first Nioh, like you're probably equipped to do this.
Okay.
And not only that, I would say the systems, adding the transformations, adding the weapons, specialties, all that kind of stuff. I think it adds more options for the people that like this type of game. But having those extra options does not make it more accessible to someone that wouldn't like this type of game.
Not at all. And like a lot of it was also in the first game. So like if you're already familiar with that, you're gonna not need as much explanation on this, and like you're gonna only have a certain number of things to layer on top of what you already know, having gone through the first Nioh. But for me, it's kind of like there's 2 ways you could go with the medieval samurai magical like hard as nails action adventure game, and one is Sekiro and the other is this, and I vastly prefer Sekiro.
And I would agree with you 100%. I even think the combat system from Sekiro made me better at this game because blocking is such an emphasis in Sekiro, and in this one I actually tended to block a little bit more than what I'm used to.
Interesting.
Okay. I find that you run out of stamina for blocking in Nioh 2 so fast that it's better just not be there.
Yeah, just roll.
Which tends to be true of a lot of these games, especially if you're not using a shield. But
does rolling and stuff like that not use stamina?
It does.
But just not as much?
It's just like you can get like 1 3-hit combo from a decent-sized enemy in this game will knock you out.
Yeah.
Like it'll and if you run out of stamina, you're stuck there for a second while you catch your breath, and it's always better just to dodge out of the way if you can. That's at least in my experience. I mean, maybe there's stuff once you up the skill tree enough, there's ways to counter that, and of course there are also like counter moves and like parry stuff, and depending on what weapon you're using, the game changes dramatically in terms of how the combat works based on like which weapons you pick. So like that's pretty cool. Yeah, and there is a lot of variety in it. Like that's the like either you want to do long range, you want to do closer range, you want to do like standard sword, double and like double swords, totally different from using one sword. Like,
Yeah.
it's not just like
That's Team Ninja.
one sword but faster. It's like,
Yeah.
no, this is a completely different and I think harder way
Weapons
to play.
have always mattered in Team Ninja games.
Definitely.
A lot of games, it's almost just like a cosmetic swap that does more or less damage. But in Team Ninja's games, like they look at every weapon and how they're effective, how they're ineffective.
And I went back and forth and traded out several weapons and tried them out back and forth. And I think which weapon you find that meshes with how you like to play is going to be key in whether you enjoy this or not.
So it sounds like from both of you guys, this is strictly only for the Souls Bloodborne crowd.
This is expert mode
Yeah.
for Souls fans, basically, I would say.
Oh, and wait till you get to the boss battles. Those are super extra.
You said it took you,
Expert.
2 hours to beat the first one or something?
Yeah, literally, I was working on it for 2.5 hours. I had to like figure out, oh, I'm not strong enough. I got to go back and build up my XP and, you know, spend those points on upgrading. And it was just a mess.
So there you go. That's Nioh 2, PlayStation 4 exclusive, which I'm surprised that it's...
Is it also on PC?
No, huh?
Not yet?
No. I'm surprised, though. I mean, I really thought that after the first one sold pretty well, that they would probably make the next one multi-platform, but that has not been the case. It is PS4 only. I would not be surprised if a PC version comes eventually, but as of right now, it's PS4 exclusive. So I don't think too many people will be losing any sleep over the fact that they're not able to play it if they're not big fans of extremely challenging games.
No, this game does not mess around.
Yeah.
You're going to have to get good on a level that you don't even have to get. Even on Dark Souls, you don't have to get that good.
Right.
But on this one, like you have my legitimate respect if you finish this game.
Will you keep playing it?
Not right now.
Yeah.
Probably. I'm looking for something a little more escapist.
Doom is good for that.
Doom is pretty much right. Exactly what I need.
In
right
the wheelhouse. Yep. Kill some stuff, blow some stuff up.
But it's like it's like any Souls game. If I get stuck or frustrated with them, I will go back to them after a couple days and see oh, maybe this time. And sometimes you have that moment where it just clicks and you figure out, oh, I got it, I did it this time.
Yeah.
And that's really always kind of like the heroin hit of the Souls genre is like, oh, you were this thing that I never thought I could get through. I did, and now I'm gonna keep going until I hit that wall again, and then it's gonna happen again.
And, yeah.
It's that's the dopamine hit. That's the addiction to that kind of game, and you either have that or you don't. And what Nioh and Nioh 2 have taught me is I think I have limits to how much I have that.
You're running out of dopamine.
Yes, the 2 hours to beat a boss, too long.
No thanks.
Too much space between dopamine hits.
Yeah, that's true.
I will say when the combat flows, it really flows,
It does.
and it feels so good and satisfying. And there was someone in chat that asked a really good question. I'll answer it really short. Yes, you can summon people to help you in battle.
Oh, we didn't bring that up, actually. It's a huge component of the game.
Yeah, so you can
Yokai.
do that. They are basically they have the same standard of whatever weapons they had, the armor they had. They could have items, tools, all that kind of stuff. But usually they take the blunt of the force, and I tried to use them during boss battles, and it wasn't really that successful. There is B-roll in here that showed that.
Probably takes too much time. You got to wind it up and let it rip, and by then you're dead. I can totally understand why that wouldn't work. All right, so that's Nioh 2. We are going to do a deep dive on this game after we're done with GameFace today. And we'll go into more detail on the combat and pretty much every element of the game, but we want to give you guys a good overview and whether you should buy it or not. And it sounds like for most people, that's a no.
Yeah, you better be well immersed in this subgenre before you try to tackle a Nioh.
And ready to take a vacation.
Yeah. Even after you play it, you're going to need a vacation.
Yeah,
apparently.
I mean, if you are stuck in quarantine and you love the Dark Souls games, this might be exactly what you need for the next 3 weeks. But
yeah. All right, it's time for Q&A. Time for you guys to get your questions into the chat. Go at SIFTD Games in the chat. It'll make it easier for us to find your questions. Our first one comes from ETH Demon, and some of these people were trained already. They had the questions in here before I even asked for them. So what are the odds companies that are switching to working from home choose to largely stick up after the pandemic is over? So basically he's saying so many people are working from home right now. Do you think that it's going to stay that way?
I mean, I would hope that would be one of the lessons to learn from this, is that a whole lot of stuff that the people told you can't be done remotely can be done remotely. Also, some of those photos of all the lack of traffic in Boston and LA and San Francisco, that's how many meetings could be emails, people.
Exactly.
The air's better.
I read an article.
The air over Italy is like detectably better right now.
Yep.
So this would be a really interesting and useful shift in terms of how we work.
I don't think it's just that, though. So I read an article that was called "America is a Sham," and it's not like an anti-America article. It's just pointing out all these things that we've just been conditioned to do as Americans, because it's just the way it is what we tell ourselves. That's just the way it is. Having to go into work, that's just the way it is. But now we're realizing that isn't the way it should be. Jailing people for petty crimes, that's just the way it is. Should it be? It's like in San Antonio, they're not putting people in jail for petty crimes right now. Should they start doing that again?
There are no parking tickets in LA right now.
Right. I mean, it just
crazy.
It's a really great article. I think you can probably Google it and find it. But it just goes through thing after thing that the coronavirus is exposing as, in all honesty, for lack of a better term, bullshit.
Yep.
There's so much stuff that we do and routines that we go through only because it's always been that way. And this is a good time for us to get rid of all those always been that way things.
Yeah, and if there's one thing that is useful to learn as you grow up, is that it's always been that way is not a reason to do anything.
Exactly. I know. People tell me that stuff all the time. When I'm watching SIFTD, they're like, but that's not the blah, blah, blah. I'm like, so?
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. I don't want to do things the way everybody else
does. If there's
a
good reason for it to be that way, there will be a better argument than we've always done it that way.
Exactly. Yep. Exactly. That's a good way to put it. From the McWomble, good to see you on the stream, man. Usually you can't make it. Do you know what Pachter's E3 party might be like this year? Has he emailed bottles to people and they dial in on Skype?
I mean, that would be fun.
There's not going to be a Pachter party.
No.
It's already canceled, and it's a shame too, because he had already talked to me about what it was going to be, and it was going to be the best ever by a lot. It's a shame. Everything about it was going to be the best ever E3 party. It sucks. But yeah, he's not having it at all. It's not going to go down.
Well, next year.
I hope.
Yeah, because that's the thing is, like, Pachter's party, you can't throw it without E3 because you need everybody in town.
Yeah, everyone has to be there. Otherwise, it's not Pachter's party. Yeah. Although, if he did something, I'd still go.
Sure.
Even if it was just all the LA people, I'd go.
Yeah, I mean, that would still be fun, but
yep.
It's that feeling of everybody in the same place for the one time of the year.
Yep.
Maybe we can find another event to be that from now on. Maybe GDC gets real popular all of a sudden.
Or maybe we should start something. I mean, it's not that hard. You just send out a Facebook invite and people just show up.
True.
People love to drink together.
If you got to fly here from England, it might be a little...
Yeah, I wouldn't expect that for sure. Sneaky Shalid Snake. I'll say your name correctly someday. So the new consoles won't be coming out this year?
There's a chance. I mean, we don't know. I mean, China is kind of getting back to work already, but a lot of the manufacturing had been moved out of China after Trump made all the saber rattling about the stupid tariff thing.
Right.
So you're looking at manufacturing in all different places around the
Singapore,
world,
Taiwan.
Singapore, Mexico, so it's hard to know how all that will be affected as the pandemic kind of hits the different countries and kind of spreads as it spreads. And if anything in that supply chain gets disrupted somehow, you could be looking at a few months delay on just being able to put these physical items together to ship out. So yeah, it's not there's a definite non-zero chance that we see one or both of the consoles slip to next year.
I'd also put that at 20%.
Yeah.
How many consoles minimum do you think they need to launch, Matt?
I don't know. I don't know what that number would be.
I'd say 500,000. I think if you have 500,000, that's enough to get away with launching. People are going to be pissed. But
it's going to be the Wii all over again.
But it also builds massive demand.
It makes it a very desirable item.
And I think that's the number where you can get away with doing it.
Can you get 500,000 out by launch, and can you get another 250,000 out before Christmas?
Right.
That might be your
And
metric.
I think if you have that many, that lets you off the hook for releasing it when most people can't get it. I think if anything lower than that, I think people are like, oh, then why did you launch it? You're just inflating demand or whatever.
Yeah. And if it's still going to be low, but you can pull the thing where you're like, we knew that entertainment is important to everybody in these trying times, and we wanted to which is like bullshit, but it's still a decent PR line to put out in the press release.
Here's one from Kevin Rafa. Are you fearing any of your games from your fantasy league team will slip to next year because of the coronavirus? I haven't even thought about
I
this.
had not even thought about that.
I hadn't either. I have been checking my team,
bigger
though.
fish to fry, believe you me.
I did check my team. It's doing pretty good.
Yeah, Animal Crossing's doing all right there.
All of them.
Yeah.
My whole team, I think I have 4 or 5 games, and they're all 89 or higher. So I am off to a rip-roaring start. You got to do some catch-up. And I am very happy now, by the way, based on this question. I am very happy now that I did most of my games I picked were coming early in the year. I think you're probably safe. I don't see games getting delayed.
Not too many.
I don't. For this, it's like
the only thing that could delay
games.
Manufacturing the games might be a problem here and there.
Yeah, but I mean, you just get maybe less units than you want at launch. Like I don't.
And they can still put them out digitally.
Yeah. Oh, I knew someone was going to bring this one up. Yakov226. Any thoughts on the rumor that Sony is buying or leasing Metal Gear Solid, Castlevania, and Silent Hill from Konami?
I mean, whatever you got to do to save those properties from Konami,
I don't believe this at all.
No?
No, not at all.
You might want to believe the Silent Hill one.
Why? Because you know it's true already?
I've heard some things.
Really?
That, I don't know. Castlevania and Metal Gear Solid, I don't know. I could see them doing that. I don't know if, what do you do with Castlevania?
You make a great action-adventure game.
Yeah, but, what kind? Do you make, a God of War kind of thing? Or do you make, a really...
Even in, the same engine.
Or do you make Bloodstained? Do you make a high-end, 2D, Metroidvania?
Either or.
Do you do both? You bring Iga back?
I think if you're paying for the license, though, you're not creating the 2D version.
I think you are.
Really?
After Bloodstained? After what Bloodstained sold and did on a Kickstarter? I think you bring Iga back and do what you did with Death Stranding. Iga comes back and makes his game again.
Well, if that's the case, then I think you do both. Because
you could do both.
Because the console version's going to sell way more. And if you're going to plunk down a big coin to Konami for this, you need to make it back in sales. And I just think a console version would end up selling
if you bought
particularly a Sony first-party one.
What console version?
Well, if they lease it and and then Sony makes a PlayStation 5 game based on Castlevania or Metal Gear Solid, they're console games.
Yeah, but I mean, a 2D game would be a console game too.
Yeah, but you know what I mean.
Not really.
Has there ever been
Bloodstain's a console
2D
game.
Castlevania game released first for a console? Or for a console?
Most Symphony of the
they're
Night.
all handheld.
Symphony of the Night came out on PlayStation 1.
Yeah, that's the only one.
Bloodstained.
That's not a Castlevania
game, but it is the most recent example. Ori is a Castlevania game. That genre
That's
is viable.
That's not what
again.
I meant.
But
I was talking about Castlevania.
But it's viable again. Again, just because they've always done it that way doesn't mean you got to do it that way. And if Sony wants to take that and make it a boutique 2D game,
never happen.
It
will never happen. You know that'll never happen, Matt. If they spend that much money, they're going to make a console game first. Guaranteed.
I don't know what you mean when you say console game.
Like a game that most of the average people
anything
assume...
Sony makes is going to be on a console.
I get that. You know what I mean.
You mean a 3D game?
Yeah, like a polygonal game that most people look at and say that's worth $60. Not 2D games. Most people look at them and they're like, if it's really good, I'll spend $25 on it.
Yeah, well, it's still that you make Bloodstained out of that, and it's still Bloodstained, but Castlevania, get Iga back, do the whole thing, do the battle in 1999. You've got the hype. That would be a big deal. It wouldn't be a big deal like Death Stranding, maybe, but Death Stranding didn't turn out to be that much of a big deal. Although it did turn out to be oddly prophetic.
Yeah, I just don't think it's going to happen. I think Konami would be idiots to do that. Those brands are gigantic. I
don't really agree with that for Castlevania because they're not doing anything with that.
I can't imagine. But I mean, they have a TV show. They're making money off of that too. Every time somebody pays for that license, they make money.
You give them the game rights. You don't give them the TV, the mass media rights.
But I guess you could split that out.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you got to realize, too, Konami's business, with pachinko and that type of stuff, I don't know.
But you don't give Sony that. You just give them the game rights.
I guess.
You do kind of a Spider-Man thing with it, basically.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I guess that could work.
Metal Gear, I don't know why Sony would want Metal Gear unless they wanted to have Kojima do another one. And I feel
which probably is exactly what would happen.
Which probably what they want. I don't know if Kojima would be willing to do that. It feels like he doesn't really miss being locked into that.
I don't know. He misses those sales numbers rolling in.
That's true. But I don't know. It might take two disappointments to really push him in that direction.
It could be. I just think they're too valuable. Even though Konami's not doing much with them right now. If they did it on a temporary basis and let PlayStation just put out one each from the IP, I think that makes sense. But selling them to Sony permanently makes no sense to me whatsoever.
I don't see selling them being that likely just because, why would you? you'd rather hold, even if it just comes down like making a Metal Gear Netflix show one day. Like,
yeah.
It's money in the back pocket for something, even if you're not making video games anymore out of
And
them.
Konami knows back pocket money better than anyone. That's where it makes all its money now. Stuff that people don't even realize that they're making cash.
But contracting out to Sony to let them make actual decent titles for those things again would be a pretty shrewd move, especially for a company that doesn't have like a development system in place anymore.
I'm all for it, by the way. I mean, this is obviously I would love to play
look,
party.
I'd love to see Castlevania come back in some form. Like
I just don't think Konami will do it. I just don't think it makes financial sense for them.
Well, I don't think selling it, but I think licensing it does.
Yeah.
If Sony's willing
for
to do
one
that.
entry. Yeah, I mean, and you got to figure if you're Sony, are you willing to do that?
You're willing to do it. You're willing to
Because you're
do it for
basically
like
building their IP for them.
Yeah.
And then it's like, think about it. You could make a great Castlevania game. Everybody loves Castlevania again. And then Konami's like, oh yeah, and they take it right back, and then they make the next one.
Well, that's why you build it in that like that Sony still owns what they make in terms of like you could not, like, Konami couldn't then turn around and use what Sony made Castlevania into for their own purposes.
Well, they couldn't use their code, but they could just ride the wave that Sony
they could make
has
their
created.
own Castlevania game,
Yeah.
but like that would be stupid because Konami sucks.
It does.
So
that's absolutely true.
I guess you really have to wonder. The real X factor is: does Konami realize how much they suck?
I think it's starting to figure it out.
I think they might be getting there.
I think Metal Gear Survive was a big old backhand to the face.
Yeah. See, I don't think all three of those things would happen at the same time. I think one of them is going to be a pilot program, and that's probably going to be Silent Hill.
And they'll see how it goes.
Which is interesting because Silent Hill is probably the hardest one of those three to successfully pull off here.
Agreed, yeah.
But we'll see.
Yeah. You really need good writers.
Bring back Del Toro.
Gohan Rage, thank you for Twitch Prime. The J-Boned 29, thank you for Twitch Prime. Axel F 1986, thanks for Twitch Prime. Call of Dookie 1, thanks for Twitch Prime. Y'all are awesome. Oh wow, there's so many questions. Commander Fett 03, thank you. All right, let's get to these questions here. We got a lot. The J-Bone 29, how worried are you if you are Microsoft and Sony trying to sell a $500 system? Where might we be economically?
A little worried.
I'm actually not worried.
I mean, I'm a little worried in the sense that, like, if this stuff shuts things down for months, people are going to lose jobs. People are not going to have money. Like, who knows? Like, who knows? And you're kind of stuck with, like, the question, like, you hit either a point where people are not going to have the spare money to spend on a frivolous entertainment device like that, or the one industry in the Great Depression that did not falter was movies.
Yeah.
Because people still need entertainment.
Before video games existed. And that's why I'm not worried at all. That is the one thing in the worst of times people are willing to spend money on, entertainment. Mm-hmm. They'll spend it on films. They'll spend it on video games. And I think, if anything, video games are going to sell better because they're a better value proposition over films.
I think the games themselves will definitely sell better. A full brand new console, that
sacrifice.
Might be a different
for sure
beast.
Yeah, I was going to jump in on this one because Shane and I talked about this earlier, and update. I have no job. I literally lost my job because I looked in as a restaurant as a server, so I lost that gig because they shut down restaurants. So right now at this moment, when I saw the Xbox news yesterday, I was like, I don't care at this moment. I need to figure out stuff about me at this moment, and I'm curious if people like myself that feel that way, that are having this hit a little harder than some other people that can just work from home, that it might turn them off on these consoles, especially because they're releasing this information literally days after places have shut down completely. I'm just really curious about that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it'll help.
No, I mean, that's definitely a good point that, like, if you are in a situation like that and then they're doing, Microsoft drops all the info on the Series X and tomorrow we got the PlayStation 5 thing, it's hard to imagine that a lot of these people aren't just going to be looking at this thing saying, like, well, I can't afford that now.
It might actually bum them out more than anything.
Absolutely. That's exactly what I was
FOMO,
saying.
basically.
Like, pretty
No,
much.
that's exactly what I just felt. I was like, I don't want to buy this right now.
Yep.
Nor can I.
Yep.
We got breaking news from Vincent. Jeff Keighley bringing back the Games Festival tomorrow with 40-plus indie demos coming to Steam.
Okay. Is that really breaking news?
It's E3 replacement.
Okay.
Or something. I don't know.
Super Cordon Bleu. Let's get through these. Nintendo has been doing a digital E3 for years now. Corona's going to force Sony and Microsoft to do the same. Do you think Sony or Microsoft will ever go back to a physical show, especially if these digital events work just as well?
I don't see Sony ever going back.
I don't think Sony's ever going back to E3, period,
No.
at this point. If you're not going to go there when you're launching a console, you're not going back. So they're not going back. I think Microsoft will absolutely do press conferences.
Yeah.
I just think it's in its DNA as a corporation, not Xbox, Microsoft. That's how it debuts products. It's like Apple. Do you think Apple would ever go to like a direct instead of having? I mean, they may have to here shortly.
Yeah.
But Apple's big events. It's all about the
They want the faithful up
the
front.
psychos clapping
Yeah.
for everything.
The cult is part of the show.
It is. And, Microsoft has been that way for a long time, and I would argue Apple learned that from Microsoft. So, I think
It's
Microsoft...
hard not to learn it with Steve Ballmer screaming around a stage.
Exactly. Yeah. I think Sony, no. Microsoft, yes.
You make fun of that man as much as you want, but I remember corporate briefings he gave 24 years ago because of him. So it works.
Tomb Raiders 11 final bets. I don't know what that means. Which will be more powerful and by how much, PS5 or Xbox Series X?
Xbox.
You think so?
No question.
Yeah.
By how much? I don't know. I don't even know what that means anymore. But
Yeah, it's really hard to quantify.
The Xbox will be a bigger beast, I think.
I think,
will it matter that much? I don't know. I don't think we can know that yet.
That was my point, is that I think the difference is going to be so negligible. I don't think the gap will be as big as there was between PS4 and Xbox One, for instance.
No, I don't think so.
I think they'll be closer. As to which one becomes more powerful, I don't know. I got to go Sony, Matt, only because it has the opportunity to one-up Microsoft.
How?
Because it knows everything about the Series X
You
at this
can't
point.
change the PS5 hardware anymore.
You can
No, you
tweak
can't.
a couple things. You absolutely can.
No, you can't. No, you can't. It's too late. It's been locked in for probably 8-9 months.
You can absolutely change the RAM type, the amount of RAM.
Not this late in the game.
Yeah, you can.
No, you can't.
Absolutely.
Promise you can't. And especially not with what's happening now in manufacturing.
Well,
there's no way.
We'll see.
You have to have that shit locked in before a year out.
I bet PS5. Matt bets Xbox Series X. We'll see.
I'm going Xbox. They seem a little desperate right now to really get attention.
And that's been like Microsoft's ace in the hole for like 2 generations now. Is they're more powerful, especially for the Xbox One X. Like that's like
I don't count that.
That's what they've yeah, but it's like I play all my multi-platform stuff on the X now.
Yeah.
Because of that.
Yeah.
Like that it doesn't matter on a mass scale.
But there's only so
people
much
don't
you can
know,
do
but-
if you don't know what the other company is making.
Well, you just like put crazy amounts of RAM and shit in it. Like the Series X is a beast.
It
like,
is, I know.
and I do not see the PS5 being on that level.
We'll see.
I don't think it's going to matter because it's going to be the difference between like 45 frames a second, 60 frames a second. And the mass audience doesn't even know what frames per second means. So,
Okay, last question. The McWomble, because you're never on here, man. We got to answer your question. Don't think you mentioned that the same SoC for Series X is going in the server blade supporting 4.1S streams. What might that do for? Oh, okay. I have no idea what he's saying. Do you?
no.
Y'all, you got to type stuff out a little more. Less acronyms, less like words that you and your friends use when you talk about stuff. SoC for Series X. State of, I don't know what it is. We tried, McWomble. Here's the last one. Emperor Dread. To each of the three of you, do you plan to play one big game like Persona 5 Royal or lots of little games during the pandemic?
I plan to play whatever the hell I want.
I plan to play whatever the hell I have to.
System on a chip.
I'm not going to play Persona 5. I already did that.
Yeah, I've already played through Persona 5. That's not a good example for me, but it doesn't, whatever comes out, I'm going to play it. I don't really get to pick and choose. Like, I have to play, like, everything, so that's what I'm going
Like, I will probably, definitely going to play Doom. I will dabble in Animal Crossing, because I guess I have to. And then, like, when I have spare time, I will probably finish Ori, and I've been going back to Greedfall a little bit.
Interesting.
I've
I'm still playing this stuff.
I never played Animal Crossing, so that's
Mitch has never played an Animal Crossing
So that's
game.
my assignment.
Actually, what I found out was that Switch is Mitch's first ever Nintendo console.
that I
Wow.
owned. I've played Nintendo consoles.
Not many. He's a bit of a blind spot with Nintendo. We got to fix that.
That's very true. And McWomble responded to you. It's system on a chip.
System on a chip. Okay. The same system on a chip for Series X is going in the server blades supporting 4.1S streams. What does that mean? Again, all right, we got to move on. The show's over.
My guess is it's not going to mean anything.
That's probably safe. Next time, make your questions obvious. We can't read your mind. We don't know what you're talking about. So try to keep acronyms out of it. Any jargon that you're using with your bros, try to keep it out of it so we can read it a little easier.
4S. I mean, I don't know what 4S 1S streams is.
I don't
That's
either.
My issue. I
Yeah.
guess it's 4.
It might be something that people who have tried xCloud understand. I don't know. No clue. All right, that's it for GameFace 203. A great show. I'm glad we were able to do it. I'm hoping we're able to do next week's show. I think we're safe. It seems like 3 people getting together is never not going to be okay. I mean, otherwise, how do you let families go home? It's really who knows?
The idea is that if you're stuck in one place together with your family, you're not really encountering other people out there, and I don't know where you go.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. That's true.
You certainly don't know where Mitch goes.
So we'll see. But like I said, if it works out that we're all just stuck at home, we'll figure out some way to make content for you guys.
It's also pretty. I mean, we don't know because the testing is not robust as it should be. The only country that's really done testing on the level that needed to be done was probably South Korea.
Yeah. And look at what happened. They actually have it under control now.
But also note that their stats are very different from Italy's
in
terms of who has it and where. So Italy's stats are something like 11% of the cases they've tested positive were 20 to 29 years old.
Yeah.
In South Korea, it's 29% are 20 to 29 years old, which means a ton of people in their 20s are walking around with no symptoms.
And
passing it on
other
to people.
Yep.
Which is why we shut the bars.
Stay at home, people.
That's one of the key things here.
We don't have to tell these people to stay at home. That's what we do anyway.
But that's one of the key things here is we shut, America, a lot of states especially, but America in general has shut bars and entertainment locations down way earlier than Italy did.
Yeah.
So, because it's hard to tell Americans what to do, but it's also hard to tell Italians not to drink.
That's true.
So they shut everything down much sooner. They did it. I think Italy did that around what we call stage 5. We did it around stage 3. So hopefully that will help. And people seem more or less willing to do that now that the actual establishment is closed. I think that was also very important to do the week of St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people who are just be fuck it.
Oh,
we're
could
going
have
out.
ended our country. Seriously, St. Patrick's Day could have ended everything. So anyway, that's the show. Thanks to anybody who is listening on Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts. Head on over to patreon.com/sifted and give us some cash. If you're enjoying our show for free, you're getting hours and hours of entertainment for nothing, and we'd really appreciate it.
Or send us bottles of hand sanitizer, because I think that's the new currency.
No, toilet paper. Toilet
paper, too, the white gold.
My wife just got, before we went on the air, called me and said that she found toilet paper. We were down to our last roll and a half. So all you jackasses out there who are hoarding the toilet paper, please stop. I was at Target, and an 80-some-year-old dude walks in. He's like, I have been driving around all day. I'm completely exhausted. We have no toilet paper. My wife is sick, and she's in the car. Can somebody please help me? I literally almost cried standing there. And people were like, I'll help you, but we don't have any toilet paper. And some people were like, I have some at home. I'll bring it to you. I'll drive it over to you. And he's like, I don't want random people coming to my house, and I don't want to give you my phone number. He's like, what are we supposed to do? And I'm like, what are you supposed to do?
If you go to any comic shop, there are tons of 90s comic books
you can
by Rob Liefeld that you can use as toilet paper in a pinch.
Seriously, though, people, think about other people. There are 80, 90-year-old people out there who can't drive around all damn day trying to find frickin' toilet paper. Meanwhile, you're sitting at home with the frickin' stockpile. It's insane. Stuff like this a lot of times brings out the best in people. It also shows you who the worst are. And the people who are taking this stuff and stockpiling it are awful. So,
if you can find one big package of toilet paper like you find in Target or whatever, that'll last you through this.
Dude,
I promise.
I have my own bathroom in our apartment. I go through a roll of toilet paper every week and a half. That's how long it takes to go through a roll. These people are stockpiling for the rest of their lives. Yeah. It's insane.
And I get
Stop it.
When I go get it, I get the big 96 rolls.
Yeah, I get a big pack, so I don't have to worry about it for a while.
I spread it through the bathrooms in a house. The last time I bought one was 2 months ago.
What are these people doing?
And I still have 40
What
left.
are they doing with toilet paper?
I don't know.
I don't want to know.
I don't know what's happening.
Anyway, stop frickin' doing it. There's people that need it, not people who want it. That's the big difference.
I am almost out of paper towels, though.
They're everywhere.
I haven't seen them. They've been gone.
They're everywhere.
They restocked yesterday, though, so
you'll find them. No problem.
That's
That's the one thing
they
we haven't had problems
They didn't
with.
retain the hoarding value the way the toilet paper did.
Yeah, for some reason. It's crazy. Anyway, that's 203. We will be back next week. law willing, not God willing, law willing, if we're allowed to, we'll be here. And if something happens that we can't, we will be creating content for you guys. We'll make sure that we get you guys stuff to help pass the time through these crazy times. So thanks to everybody who's on the stream. I'm assuming as time goes on, the stream may get bigger as people are forced to shelter at home. We'll see how it goes. But we appreciate everyone on the stream, especially the folks in Europe and Asia, where the time's a little different. But we'll be back here next Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific. GameFace is up and out.